What's your thoughts on that? Would you ever jump on a plane that was all-female flight crew?
There's no man that I know that will do that. This is what I'm saying.
It's not something that changes anything in terms of me traveling. I'm going to travel the regular way I was used to traveling. I'm not going to go to some promotional marketing of women, all women's crew, and let's try it out. Like, I'm not.
But
I think that type of thing. Because to me, again, that's just like posturing. That's just trying to do something. It's the same thing, and it is dangerous because
it is very dangerous.
You know what's funny about this?
To give you a piece of my mind.
Far from Normal Bros, and we back at it again. First of all, I'm gonna need you to tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a mother effing friend to follow and subscribe to your boys. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other podcast platforms as well. You can catch us on YouTube and TikTok. That's Far From Normal Podcast. Make sure you type that into a search engine and see the boys on those clips. We got everything for you. We got the website, www.farfromnormalpodcast.com. We got all the links up there. Make sure you check it out. Of course, YouTube. We're on Instagram as well. That's far_from_normal_podcast. Check it out. You already know. It's your boy Fuzzy Vision. You know, I see the world clear. And you know, I see the future. And the future is bright. You already know. Fuzzy Vision with 2 N's. If you have any likes, dislikes, rebuttals, or you want to be on the podcast, hit your boy up. Sonny, drop the handle, baby.
You already know what it is. It's your boy Sonny Frames. You can catch me on the gram at Sonny, SONNY, Frames, double S at the end. Make sure when you do check out my Instagram page, check out my stories because I usually post a lot of stuff that has to do with motivation, inspiration, chasing your dream, and execution. So let's not forget, any dream that you're trying to achieve, the only way that you'll ever achieve it is through execution and putting a plan to motion. So make sure that you don't just stay in the dream world, and make sure you make it a reality.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
And Fuzzy, let's get him.
Essentially, you were talking about specialty of skill.
Oh, wow.
Specialty of skill, especially when it
So I
comes
think-
to being
so,
a
yeah,
UFC
so
fighter,
when-
transitioning into boxing.
Exactly. So I think what happens, the biggest problem with boxers, or not boxers, UFC fighters, is that whole transitioning period where they have the issue of not making a lot of money in the UFC. So they hear about boxing and they're like, well, we're already doing mixed martial art. How hard can boxing really be? But we have to understand that boxing is a concentrated sport. So that means everybody that trains when it comes to boxing is only focusing on boxing. Whereas when you're in the UFC, you're focusing on mixed martial arts. So you could be a grappler, you can be a boxer, you could be a kickboxer, you could do multiple things. But now when you're in boxing and you're only you're constrained to only box, it makes it a lot more difficult. It's almost like tying one hand behind your back.
But here's the thing. Here's the reality of it. The fact of the matter is, the only reason this is working is that you're getting one of the more hyped guys from the UFC. So they've done this with Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
You get one of the more hyped guys from the UFC to transition into an interesting boxing match. So you got Conor versus Floyd Mayweather. That was like the first of its kind to the big extent it was, right? And then you had the next one, which would be Ngannou versus Fury. You're talking about these guys that are champs in the UFC are challenging guys that are champs in the boxing arena. So there's a very big difference. This is not an average UFC guy versus an average boxer, and the chances of winning is way more, unpredictable, I'd say. But if you're versing the best guys, like, these UFC fighters can't possibly think in their heart of hearts that they're gonna beat these boxers that have only been training boxing. So my thing is, I believe that it's all smoke and mirrors.
No,
They're
I think they legitimately believe that they can beat these boxers.
I absolutely don't believe that.
I've done mixed martial arts, so I know that same level of arrogance.
Yes.
Well, also my father used to box, and I used to box as well, so amateurishly. So the point I'm saying with that is, from mixed martial arts, you can, as an all-arounder skill set, you say, I am better than this human being.
100%.
And there's a confidence that comes with that. But I don't exactly think that's the exact motivation here. The motivation here is the funds, because boxing
There you go.
doesn't actually bring the funds to that kind of degree, actually. So that's another misconception. The integration of both worlds is what's making it interesting. It's kind of like, here's a white woman, here's a black man, mix that. Oh, look at these half-breeds. They're so cute. So when I think about even UFC, I think about Dana White, and I say to myself, he was, from my understanding, from what I've been able to research in the past, just watching some of the, because I look towards when I'm trying to, align myself successfully, I look towards people in different businesses. And Dana White didn't want integration, even with the Conor McGregor situation and Floyd Mayweather. The reason why he didn't want that, multiple motivations. It seems to me that he probably thought that if they tasted the success that can come from those fights, he might lose quality fights.
I can see that.
And maybe might even hurt these fighters, I should say, to a point where it's bad for his business.
Even more integration.
This is what I was about to say. You can call it a crossover
And it's a
integration.
one-way crossover because the boxers aren't
Because
going
the
to
boxers
that.
can't come to that side because
They're not
because of
mixed
what?
martial artists.
Because what happens to them if they come inside the
Yeah,
octagon?
but the same is proven to be true the other way around.
Yeah.
Because these UFC fighters are not beating these boxers.
Yes.
So the likeliness of winning is equal.
No, but see, I
Actually,
think
more proof that they would lose in boxing.
no.
than there is
This fight
There's
There's
has
more proof currently, but not
Yes.
more
yeah,
proof
no,
in
the
terms of
proof came from
reality.
this fight
But
because
the reality has to be set. It needs to happen, or you don't know.
100%.
We know.
We've seen,
No,
but
we know. We know that anybody that
we know for UFC now too. I mean,
we know that
UFC
any boxer that goes into the octagon is not coming out of there.
No,
alive.
so we knew that.
Mhm.
We knew that, but we didn't know that for boxing. So because the last
we also knew that.
we
We
had a
didn't believe
feeling,
it.
so we
We didn't
believed
believe
that.
we didn't
Yeah.
believe
We,
it.
We
we
wanted-
believed
we
it at the
knew it.
beginning. We knew at the beginning
at the
when
beginning because it's
when
Ngannou.
no
What are we
when
talking about? We're talking about
McGregor
when this crossover.
when it
crossover-
first started.
First
So
crossover.
McGregor and
Okay.
Mayweather.
Yeah.
We knew that Mayweather was going to beat him, but then when McGregor went all the way to the 12th round, so we're like, oh, maybe it can happen. The crossover can happen.
Now we
UFC
got to
fighters can.
heavyweights where it's like one shot type
No,
of
but
deal.
then
That's where we
Ngannou-
believed in it.
No, but then Ngannou then went against Fury, and then again he messed them up to the extent where you're like, oh, okay,
point of the matter
maybe
is what I'm trying to say is, were you believing in Ngannou's boxing skills or his power?
It
His
was
power.
It was his power.
His power,
Yes.
his his reputation.
This is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. So, coming from both worlds, so to speak, I knew that it wasn't going to be what it was. However, even me, especially during the press conferences, one thing I appreciate about Ngannou is he had this, I don't want to call it slick, but his responses had me thinking, this nigga really thinks he can do this.
he had
And then
ultimate confidence.
He had
so
ultimate
then-
confidence
and
for
then
sure.
sometimes how Joshua's eyes, in one particular, I don't know which one it was, when one particular press conference or face-to-face before the match, to me it looked like Josh. It even looked to me at one point in time where it's like, Joshua, you might even know that this man's power. You might even believe it.
I also believe that too.
Right.
When I seen his face,
It
I
looked like,
actually
Joshua,
looked.
this person is getting
He
you.
looked scared. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he's
looked
getting
scared
to
in
you.
some of the conversations they were having. He
Which-
looked. He was
looked like
questioning.
he feared some
He was.
power.
Yeah, he was questioning
Because he's
himself.
aware of that
Maybe
power.
He's aware of
Yes.
the power.
Yes.
He's aware
He's
of
aware
the
of the power, but obviously, when you have more experience and then you hone into what you do know versus what might be scary or might cause fear, because fear has a good element and component to it. He was able to
Keeps
hone
you
into
sharp,
it, and
keeps
then
you sharp,
exactly.
right?
But that's why he
So
took
he
him
could have
out in
been
the
taking
second
it
round. Yeah.
serious. Again,
That's what I'm
he
saying.
took
So-
it very serious.
But
Exactly.
yeah, it's funny because a lot of people were saying, "Oh, Anthony Joshua, he kind of ruined the fight because he should have let it go a couple rounds." But I think what people don't understand is
Do you
that-
want to die?
that this was
No, but
exactly.
even when you play sports for fun, when have you ever let up to lose? Like, to be fair.
Well, if
No,
the
but
goal
this is the stakes
Yeah.
is high because this
Well,
is a
that's what
money
I'm saying.
grab. This
Well,
is a whole
well,
money grab
Well, it
situation.
doesn't matter. He's not going to risk the chance of him
But this is what
losing.
I'm saying. I'm saying that the viewers are mad
Yeah.
because they don't get to watch a prolonged
viewers are
fight.
always pissed off.
But the thing is, for him, he's like, I'm not trying to die. I'm not even trying to get injured. If I can end them in the first round, I'm going to end them in the first round.
the motivations of different parties are different.
There you
So
go.
the audience wants to see a fight. So if
Yeah.
they feel like they got robbed from such a quick fight, they're gonna feel the way. But
Yeah.
you see, that's the thing about people who use cocaine, which are mostly the audience members, metaphorically in the sense that it don't matter if you didn't like it. You're still gonna tune in if there's another
Exactly.
big.
Yes.
There's another one. You're
And
still
the
gonna
powers
watch
that be
it.
that advertise and understand psychology are gonna take advantage of it.
Right, isn't that why they're doing the other fight now?
The
Mike Tyson
versus,
and Jake Paul.
So what we're
And
realizing.
Netflix is now into
They entered the.
So
entering the fighting.
So
Yeah.
the issue is the money. The issue
So now
is
it's
the
money.
money's corrupted the integrity
Yes.
of these previous standalone planets.
Yes.
Especially
There's now a
because they're
stronger
very
integrity.
respectable sports on both sides, to be fair. They're not
Okay.
really exhibition type sports where it's like, let's do a circus match. Like
Yeah.
they're really, because at the end of the day, they are putting a champ
It's
against
becoming
a champ.
that
They're
now.
not making, like I said, two average guys fight each other just to see who can win what. It's not circus-ish. in that
Are you
way.
are you sure? Because now we're looking at.
No,
I mean-
I'm talking about the main powers, like
Okay.
the top boxing promotions and the top like UFC,
Okay.
mixed martial arts promotions,
because
which
it's not
is the
UFC.
UFC.
That's exactly. It's not
Exactly.
UFC. That
There's
we're
other
doing now.
promotions
Okay.
as well, right? So they're not like trying to be gimmicky. So I think it does help both businesses at the end of the day. It's going to help both businesses.
The problem when I think about these type of things, like
Mhm.
there's human element of things too that I want to incorporate when it comes to someone like Francis Ngannou. There's no way being knocked out like that was a beautiful look
Oh,
for
yeah.
his
Not
ego
at
and
all.
just for what he is.
reputation wise.
And seriously, right? So
Mhm.
when I think about that, sometimes it's hurtful. As a man who recognizes what I think Francis Ngannou's motivations were, it strikes me that his motivations were, again, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. There was that motivation, but I think really behind it all was money.
Yes.
It's money, unfortunately.
Apparently, I was hearing numbers. I kept on hearing the 20
20 million, 20
number.
million.
So I imagine that there's some truth to it.
Yeah. So did he really lose or did he win? In terms of
He still lost
this
because
is what
your
I
masculine
say.
integrity was displayed for the world to see. And
Well, see,
that's
now-
not
But,
lost.
but this is why I say, well, he never necessarily lost. It depends what he does next. But I think
No. He lost.
I was gonna say in terms of
He-
masculine integrity. Now that we're speaking on masculine integrity, let's talk about the men in red heels and them marching
well, what happened? What are we
against
talking
the
about?
violence of women. So
What are we
basically,
talking about?
so on social media, there was this video that came out, and there's men in red heels that were marching for the violence on women. Now, when we talk about masculinity and the integrity of it, do you feel that that's an issue, that men have to go as low as wear heels to represent women or to say that they support certain aspects of women? Do you need to go that far?
Well, my thing is like, why don't you just throw the wig on too? And lipstick and eyeliner. Why don't we just do the whole thing? Why don't you just dress as a woman? Actually wear the skirt, actually. Because this is the kind of shit we're doing nowadays. Every single aspect of, trying to support women, it turns into this big thing where you have to show some type of display.
So it's
You
a
have to-
theater now.
It's theater. It's goofy shit that's going on, especially like in a country like this, unfortunately. We got people or men that are, whether they're sitting in rooms with multiple women and trying to understand their issues or trying to understand what it is to be a woman. We have guys with goofy ideas saying, hey, it's going to be a good idea to wear heels and see what it feels like to be a woman in heels, but it's against but the cause is violence against women. But we're gonna wear heels to represent how it feels to be like a woman. Is like what are we doing? That's
It's a symptom of the bigger issue here. The bigger issue is men. Those that pose like men are actually not men, and a lot of males are. A lot of males are undeveloped to realize what it's like and what it is to approach manhood with masculine lenses. So that's the bigger issue here. Because this was a thing even when, was it for breast cancer, males would have to cut their hair or grow their mustache or something.
I think it was
of that
grow
nature.
their
What was that?
mustache or something.
Yeah.
Whatever. These sorts of things, it even ties into a meme or a picture or some photo from ABC News about when you have late fees, give a cat instead of hand over a cat, or take a picture of a cat.
Yeah.
Take a picture of a cat instead of paying your late fees.
Mm.
Degradation of this society, moral degradation that is at play here and at large is what's creating these weird, as you call it, these goofy outcomes, because it's definitely affecting integrity. And it's because to be a man, you have to have a certain sort of integrity. You got to be integral. But there's no excuse for any male out here to be putting on red, what's that thing? What's that called? Dorothy Ann shoes from the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, the red
That's
shoe.
what that looked like when I
That's
first
what
saw
it did
that
look
thing.
like.
But now the question is, who gets hurt by this?
Obviously, men get hurt.
So men get hurt, but why aren't men policing these things? Why are we sitting back and allowing this type of goofy behavior to enter the fold?
I'm not sitting back.
I mean,
would
what have you done? What have you done personally to
This is the problem.
counter that whole
I
situation?
do a lot of things to counter a lot of situations where people behave like bitch ass niggas. So I just don't express it because clearly we're being recorded.
Yeah.
But things should be done and things do get done. The problem now is the money, yet again, we were just talking about the Ngannou fight, the money that these evil actors at play here have, I don't have. I don't have the tens of billions that go into marketing and pushing these ideologies.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, you have a lot of males or men in their own worlds actively going against the grain, or at least going against this fad or trend, this evil, what is it? It's a feminine encouragement to be placed on males' behavior. There's a lot of men that go against it, and they're likely going to be unsung heroes, because to put themselves out here and say, I'm the one going against it, you better have a good amount of, resources to be able to deal with these sorts of things.
Well, wouldn't that be like Andrew Tate, like a guy that is pushing a certain masculinity?
But you see,
I'm not saying him specifically and his rhetoric.
I was about to say Andrew Tate,
but I'm talking about him as sort of a martyr for
he's
men.
Not a martyr.
Sorts of a martyr.
But we don't even need to use him as an example. You could use David Goggins.
The reason I say that is a martyr because what was the main reason he got canceled for? Like, it was because of his rhetoric mainly.
I think it wasn't just his rhetoric. No, it wasn't, because David Goggins preaches the same rhetoric.
He doesn't preach.
It's probably not the same
it the
rhetoric.
same. It doesn't preach the same rhetoric.
But not about like the financial aspect of it. But I'm talking about the mental.
He's just a hard ass guy. He just talks about discipline. He's no different than like a hardcore guy that's a football coach or somebody that's
he
comes from that type of cloth of whipping you into shape and don't. Be
how much people are coming out like that? That's making noise. Like David
That's not offensive. He's not going at specific groups, or he's not calling out different groups. He's not doing that.
This is. As I'm listening to this is the problem, that it seems like there is no, in the league of men, there isn't a unanimous consensus of what it means to be a man. And different actors and people who want to profit off of this need for and this search for manhood, they're obviously self-motivated and they're self-interested. And so they go into these discussions and they extract what they can. So an Andrew Tate would be one of those profiteering sorts of individuals that wants to engage in a discussion to possibly further his own agendas. And upon doing that, and I think this is the same thing that was true for Donald Trump to some degree, you have a lot of these males who want to enrich their financial situations. Ngannou would be no different in this general theme, where you want to profit, you want to make funds, and so you go into industries and discussions and whatever have you at the expense of men generally, just so you can further and line up your pockets. These are, I don't want to call them nefarious, but these are selfish actors at play here. So that's what I would say. That's the reason why I was saying Andrew Tate is not a martyr. What happened, though, just the same way you found with Donald Trump, they were going in for themselves. It's you were going in for yourself until you realized, whoa, there's a greater problem right here. Like this is you stumble across something that can actually shape in generations to come in a negative way. So if you want to call it a road to Damascus change, where your intention was to prosecute or line up your pockets, but on your way to robbing that bank, you saw that maybe after getting some of this funds from the bank that you can actually use your power and influence that you stole or whatever have you for good, because maybe there's a greater calling than you just lining up your pockets. So that's what I think happened with a person like Andrew Tate.
You're right
I
in
won't
that
call him a martyr,
sense.
though.
But I would say actually David Goggins is not a good example to use, but I know a good example to use. Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson's a good one. And the reason why I said sort of a martyr is because at the end of the day, men, let's just look at it this way. Even like a Jordan Peterson and any man that gets canceled to a certain degree that we feel is unfair, especially over what they say. It's the freedom of speech then. It's the sort of, that's where he's a martyr in a sense, because we have to look at it. They're suppressing his ability to preach what he wants to preach. Now, that could be good and bad, but they don't do that for certain things. Like
Yes.
I said, like for certain shit that we don't agree on, they're not censoring what we think is necessary for our culture or what we believe in. They censor certain stuff that could have been more beneficial to certain groups or whatever, or maybe detrimental, whatever the case is. But the point is they pick and choose. Why would they pick Andrew Tate to be that guy to suppress when there's other more radical people saying other shit that's not getting suppressed? Man, I hear all
Because
types
there's
of
darkness,
stories.
there's spiritual darkness that's at play here.
Of course. And also the influence that he had. Like, it's because he was relevant enough to cancel. So you have to give him his credit for getting to the point of relevancy. And then now they're trying to suppress him and he can't say this, he can't say that.
You don't have to be too relevant to be canceled in the sense of worldwide phenomena outreach. But you are right. You are right. At the levels that he reached, it was getting too big that a lesson had to be shown to the world.
A lesson had to
But
be shown.
Day to day, I know individuals, I know educators, I know doctors, I know lawyers. Look, Jordan Peterson,
But-
when
but
he
as I'm
was
saying,
starting off.
he was
My
as-
thing is, do you agree to someone being canceled by things they say?
So, no.
So if someone's saying
No, but
shit,
what that actually did
You
was
realize that
it-
it's disproportionate.
disproportionate.
Yeah, man, God, today is not the day for me. But you realize that who's getting canceled when it comes to the sexes?
Men.
Mostly men.
Yeah.
Why is that? It's less of what they're saying, but it's what a man's words can become.
yeah.
Mhm.
Which, if you take it from a biblical standpoint, we're in a time where people say, "Oh, God's a woman." Stop it. The masculine energy that is godly. What did he say? Let there be light. And what comes next? Action. So a man's words is usually a reflection of the action he would have. That's why you want to tread carefully and respectfully. This is the reason why we're having discourse and conversation, because behind conversation like this is the will to kill. And so the reason why they cancel men when men are saying things that can seem violent or seem like it can grow into such strong action, because it's truly men that take said action that would actually stifle or progress the world.
100%.
Mhm.
So powers that be who behind the curtain, they're usually males
Okay.
Mhm.
And it's funny that you mentioned
Right.
that. They're usually males.
that are behind the scene.
They're behind the scene.
Stifle
What
men.
other
Yeah.
men are doing.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely.
But see, now that you mentioned that, there's an article that's out there that they're doing a whole all-female crew flight. So
female flight crew.
I'm sorry, they're doing an all-female flight crew, right? And
I
now,
saw this on the news the other day briefly.
yeah. So,
Mhm.
what's your thoughts on that? Would you ever jump on a plane that was all-female flight crew?
Of course not.
And
You're
why
talking about-
not?
You're talking
Why
about
not?
pilot also. You're talking
A
about
pilot. I'm talking about every single person.
See, it's interesting. That's
Of course not. I didn't mean to cut you off.
my whole thing is. It's not like, I mean, are they telling me it's all women like flight crew?
Yes, because they have to promote
Oh,
it
yeah,
because
that's-
again, males are controlling everything essentially. So now they want to make it known.
I probably wouldn't partake in that.
And why wouldn't you?
there's
the-
no man that I know that will do that.
It's just not something I need to experiment with.
This is what I'm saying.
It's not something that changes anything in terms of me traveling. I'm going to travel the regular way I was used to traveling. I'm not going to go to some promotional marketing of women, all women's crew, and let's try it out. Like, I'm not.
But I
I'm
think-
not an
I think,
advocate
yeah.
of that type of thing. Because
See-
to me, again, that's just like posturing. That's just trying to do something. It's the
dangerous.
same thing, and it is dangerous
It
because
is very
you know what's
dangerous.
funny about this? I seen that you guys mentioned this female flight crew, and I don't care if they have their license and whatnot. That's not what the point of me not going on the plane or whatnot. It's just the fact of, what are we trying to do here? Because the same thing happened in one of the MLB games, Major League Baseball. They did an all women's commentating team.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they did one
I did
game
not
where
know
it's
that.
just like all women commentating, and then I'm kind of looking at it. I'm like, well, this is irrelevant. Like what are you gonna gain from this? Like, the
This is why I
sport's
don't-
obviously promoted to men.
Yeah.
So you have an all women crew commentating is doing what? Is pushing what needle?
Well, I
It's
think they're trying to. What
representing
they're
what?
trying to push is they
But
want the integration
Point
of
of
the
what
two.
I'm saying, all I'm gonna do is change the channel and watch something else,
These
because
males-
it's not necessary for me to watch an all women's
Yes.
crew
This is
just because you want to include them.
This
Mm.
is the reason why I think warfare is healthy. As I hear you guys discuss these different, topics, the underlying situation is a man should be able to par and form community with people who have similar views. And unfortunately, since we all share the same earth, sometimes these views of other individuals might collide with the views of your community, and warfare is necessary. Because when you say something like change the TV, change the channel, I should say, that doesn't stop the issue.
'Cause it's still there.
Because
Well, for
you
me, it
as a
doesn't-
man,
doesn't change not- yeah.
it might stop the issue for you, but no, you it didn't stop the
I just
issue for
ignored.
you.
Yeah,
You
you
chose
ignored
to recuse yourself and
Yeah.
remove yourself
Yeah.
from a problem. So the issue is still happening,
Of course.
right? If you vacate the premises of a home that's infested with cockroaches, you didn't stop the problem. You just said, I don't want to be a part of the infestation. Right? That's all you really did. So if you leave that unchecked, one of these days those cockroaches will find the next door, the next house, and say, hey guys, come through.
Yeah,
And so
and it gets bigger. Like the movement
This is what I'm
continues to snowball effect.
But even the reason.
So what we
Yeah, go
I didn't
ahead.
mean to cut. What I'm saying, the issue that I'm finding here is that who are these males that accept to watch this? And like I said, there are certain males
That are
in the
doing
high
this.
positions
Power
that
at
are
B.
saying, let's hire these women
Yeah.
to be in these positions.
Mhm.
So one-off individual, as Ahmed saying, I don't want to be a part of that, isn't addressing those issues.
Do you think it's experimental though?
But here's the thing.
it's some cuck behavior?
Yeah,
Mm.
but here's the thing. Here's one thing I want to mention, because I know, some women will be like, oh, like, you don't want to watch all women. Why not?
Forget 'em. No, we don't.
But here's the thing. And yes, you're absolutely right. No, I don't. Just like you wouldn't care to watch a transgender beat women at sports. Like,
Mhm.
you as women, because you might believe that why do we have to integrate them, why do we have to, so we all are prejudiced to certain things, we all have preferences, and we look at certain things a certain way, right? So anytime there's a change up, you can't just force something in and expect people to jump on the bandwagon.
In a perverted sense, to add to what you're saying, in a perverted sense, it's a scream for attention.
There you go.
Because from what I've noticed with women who tune into podcasts, they usually tune into predominantly male podcasts.
Yes.
Very interesting things. These women that want to be respected as women or staying feminine or whatever the bullshit I hear these people saying on a regular basis. It's been said so often that I imagine the viewership that might be women listening to this might feel attacked with what I'm saying. But the truth of the matter is, this fad and these phrases and jargon has been put out here for the last how many years that a lot of these women aren't thinking for themselves, because they usually don't. The truth of the matter is, a lot of women follow other women. So that's one problem. And then women, they act best when they follow, but you're only as good as what you're following. So if what you're following is righteous, then that's a good situation. So there's always going to be a void with what the difference between men and women are. Women are always going to need men. That's a reality of the circumstance. But I think these women that have found themselves following males that they end up wanting to not want to follow anymore, for whatever reason, because we got to know the nuances and the intricacies of each situation that a woman is going through to give a better observation of the situation. But they don't want to be around they don't want to be told, but they need to be told. And that's the reason why they venture into the commentating sports, or they venture into these places that.
I think they do want to be told, but they want to be told by a competent man.
But
If they're competent enough and confident enough, they'll be able to.
They don't define competency.
You're
Men
right
define
about men
competency.
define competency.
So if they're aware of that competency, especially if what they thought, here's the bigger issue. This is why family always matters. Because just in my history, I have a gripe with a lot of males that are not men, but they have children. So if you're having daughters and your daughter is looking at you as the man of the house, she's under your regime for a good chunk of time before she steps out into the world, it seems. So a lot of these women reference their fathers as the benchmark for what to expect in said competent endeavors. Is this person a competent man? Well, a man who can change the tires is
it's
a competent man.
Yeah, to
until
her, yeah.
he changes the tires, but he comes with a combination of he's not a good love maker or whatever else is lacking.
Mm-hmm.
So they have this dream of finding an all-arounder sort of individual,
which is very
Which is
unrealistic.
rare. Incredibly
Just very
This is what we were
unrealistic.
talking about earlier, the rarity of finding the fanatical man.
No, for sure. So what I'm saying with that is, in a sense, it's a cry for help because they don't know where to go. But they're always there to tell you what it is that they want. So it's pretty juvenile. It's pretty, immature. And until we solve that issue, or until we find proper trade-offs for that, which I have a couple suggestions, this is going to be a thing where you're going to start seeing women want to find themselves, or maybe not want, but their reaction to lack of competency is making them say, well, if I can't depend on a man, a competent man, I might as well do it myself, such as fly a plane.
So that's what I'm saying. So they're going to start trying to join more
competent
male
endeavors.
spaces,
Endeavors
male
that these men are
men's spaces.
Yeah,
They're
men's
just going to
spaces.
be in a lot of men's spaces,
And
trying to force the issue. But at the same time, men are going to look at it like, well, we're not really competing with you as much as you think you're a competitor. They're looking at you as a non-competitor, and even though they're trying to push the needle, people are still going to gravitate towards men anyways. It's just like why women gravitate towards men's sports. They don't watch women's sports.
there you go.
That's how it is.
They're watching
There
men's
you go.
sports.
Exactly.
Even
though
if
they're women,
they're pushing the
don't rush
needle,
to the
but they're not
WNBA.
like as much as they're pushing the needle. Hey, we can do what you can
How
do.
many women have you seen in a WNBA jersey?
Exactly.
How many men have you
That's
seen in an
crazy.
NBA
That's
jersey?
Exactly. That is actually
Support the
Yeah, I never thought of it in that
support the
sense.
league, but support the individual.
I never thought of it in
just
that
to
sense.
say
Yeah.
you support it, just to
Yeah.
say if you want things to work, it's just like women have to support women if they
Yeah.
want things to work, just like men support men if they
Yeah.
No,
want.
women don't have to. No. Let's not say that.
Well, like in terms of if they wanted things to go up, or they're gonna have to not go that route. I mean, you can't compare the two. This is why I say this is because then you ask for equal representation, equal opportunities.
A good woman that exists out. No, don't. Oh man, you said a lot of things there that it's like good points. Or there's so many things I want to challenge there. Follow the money. If you bring it back to the basic that women should not be in the workforce, a lot of these issues don't exist that are existing today. So when you bring up equality, that's a very devilish term. Not saying that you brought it up because you're a devil, but I'm saying it's a very devilish term because there should not be equality when it comes to these sorts of things. When you were even talking about women groups, a good woman is not in the business of being or belonging into women groups. When you find these women groups, you're finding failure in a nuclear family. It is a contrary. It is very difficult to find all women groups, save for, let's say, situations of clergy, when it's like charitable giving. If you think about nuns, nunnery, if you think about what you can find in Red Cross or perhaps what you can find in a hospital, as nurses, the hospitable forms of womanhood, that's where you usually see grouping of women. But if you see it in any other situation, you don't want to have a company you work for where you're one out of 5 males in a company of 200 employees or 200 personnel. And so essentially 195 of them are women. What is that? And how successful will that be in contrast to competent men who find themselves in a competing company that is majority men, and then of course in this scenario, five of the personnel in that company are women. So essentially, what I'm saying is, what I'm trying to describe in a respectful and in a truthful and stern way, but still I'm trying to respect the sensitivities of things. The best forms of women are usually in isolational situations. When they group themselves together, you find turmoil. No woman that's focusing on her family has that opportunity to be engaging in so many women groups.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
If you look back into the pilot situation we were just talking about, what sort of woman is finding herself dedicating said amount of hours? Because
A single woman.
A single woman or a divorced woman, or
Yeah.
it's not just a woman with ambition.
Mm-hmm.
Because unfortunately, ambition is really a masculine trait
Mm-hmm.
that some women deem to force upon themselves or are thrown into the mix for various lack of competency in their own world. So they were married into a situation where a man is able to provide. And I then say, is that which came first, the chicken or the egg? Is it that the man wasn't able to provide, or is it that there's a lot of women in the workforce?
Well, I think that's the
It's
ideology.
the money.
That's a
I
good
keep
one
saying
to
follow the
follow
money,
the
and
money.
it's really that situation, that the influx of people in the workforce that were forced upon by government incentives and ideological warfare to have women thinking you are not competent in life unless you're in the workforce. It's that is actually stifling wages. This is the truth. And women in the modern society have a tendency to not only earn said wages now, but what they're doing is their tastes and their lusts and their wants for what they can do with power and what they can do with financial or monetary interest outweighs that of their family and the family. So they go into vain things, right? And fad sort of things. So it's not going back into the family. That's the dilemma, and that's the problem that leads to this perversion. I don't mean to rant on this, but I'm saying that they all connect with each other. And so when you actually tie it back to the males that are on the heels, they're so cucked. Like I said, I don't want to use that term because I imagine that some people don't know it or appreciate it, but they're so whipped.
Yes,
They're so controlled.
I was about to say, like, explain what a cuck is for people that don't
Goddamn,
understand
So
what a cuck
you're
is.
even asking an individual that must have just learned this the last 24 months, or, right, or less. So
Cuckold.
Cuckold.
the behavior behind it is a male who is we can use the term whipped, or who lays all manners of influence that he should have as a man. He lays it at the feet of a woman, or usually a woman that he considers his queen.
So basically,
Essentially.
subservient to a woman.
Subservient to women for all the wrong reasons. Because if you want to reference that to, let's say, Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth, you know what? I won't even do that. I can, but I won't do that. I'll go a different route. Subservient to a woman, exactly. A man who is a man, not a male, should not be subservient to a woman, but should serve a woman when the time calls for it. Subservience is almost suggests answering to her beck and call.
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas
And
service,
they belittle themselves to do that.
I would even
Yeah,
argue
at
that I
whatever
would even,
cost,
I
yeah.
would present that a man should focus towards, or religiosity of things. I would say that a man should be religious. I would say that he should look towards God, and God will give direction that will fall upon him and his family. And obviously, in those moments when you're serving, when you're in the act of service, of course, you will serve your wife. I don't think it's a man's position to be serving women across the board.
Well, the problem is you can't be a leader when you're serving your wife in a subservient role.
When you're stuck as a serviceman.
Yeah,
to your
exactly.
wife.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's not you serving your wife alone. It's you're loving your wife and you're committed to your wife.
Yeah.
So it brings the term of service.
Yeah.
It's not you going
Yeah,
in for
'cause
the purpose of just serving.
Like
See what I'm
I don't like. Of course, this is just semantics. Like I don't even believe the man is serving his wife. I think the woman is serving the man in any given scenario. Any the way we're looking at it, especially traditionally, I don't think a man's purpose is to serve a woman. His purpose is to be the leader of his family and lead the family, not to serve nobody. He's
serving his family.
He can serve God if that's what he believes in, and that's who he's there to serve. He's there to provide for his family. Right?
Okay, provide.
So I would like and lead his family. At the end of the day,
and serve his family.
I think his family's there to serve him, and he's there to lead them. So
I get the difference because he's saying that he's providing for the family, but he's not serving the family. The family's supposed to serve him while he provides.
That's why your father has this. He's supposed to have the supreme say in the family in terms of what school you go to, what your religion is going to be, et cetera, et cetera. He's supposed to be leading that. He doesn't need to serve or be subservient or serve his wife's needs to do what she wants to do because he's not going to serve anything she needs to.
That's not what I'm saying, though. That's not what I'm saying. So
I know that's not what you're saying, but that's where my
subservience. I think even though we're using the same terms,
like I said, it's semantics.
Terms, yes, and I think one thing that I appreciate about this show is that we go into the semantics sometimes because it's important. Because it looks like a duck, it's quacking like a duck, and sometimes the truth of the matter is individuals make honest mistakes. And the honest mistake is they thought that what they were doing that was masculine is masculine when it actually isn't. So I want to make the distinction to say that being in servitude of your family as a man is a part of being a man, not just provisions. This is the problem with just saying provisions, because you get these women who were raised by, a lot of them are raised by males or their fathers. They're in the picture still. Not only are they in the picture, these males are the sorts of males and fathers that are in the picture, so much so that they're corrosive when it comes to marital undertakings. So what I'm saying is, if the male, so many fathers that if you speak to these chicks, they'll tell you, yeah, my father was there, but, and you say to yourself, if this man was leading his family, why is his daughter a whore? How did it get like that? Did his leadership fail at one point in time? Did it stop?
I don't think as a man that you're supposed to give the teachings to your daughter. I think the person that's supposed to be in charge of that is the woman that you married. So they always say you want to marry a woman that your daughter can look up to, because then the teachings that she had can be given to the daughter. You're supposed to raise the man to be the man that he's supposed to be, and the woman's supposed to raise the daughter to become the woman that you want her to be. I don't think you can teach her as a male. I don't think you can teach your daughter how to be a woman.
I hear that and I understand that, but I think that that's a common misconception today. I think that that's a common misconception.
But the whoredom part is, it's kind of hard to place on a father's lap. I think that's it's very hard to place that. You could place it on definitely certain individuals' laps depending on what their relationship was and what was going on. But at the end of the day, you have to lead by example, and if example is not strong enough, unfortunately, you're gonna take the blame as the parent. But like I said, if your daughter it's not up to the man. To be fair, like even if I'm thinking like in my scenario, or not my scenario, but like if I had a daughter, I would hope my woman would play an integral role in cultivating
what I'm saying,
cultivating her, especially when it comes to sex, educating her and making her have the understanding of being in a relationship. My wife. Okay. This is if I'm with a wife. This is if I'm married with a woman that I have given or that have been vouched by my community, vouched by myself, and whoever needed to vouch for this person, and I believe in their characteristics, their heritage, upbringing. I believe in those things. Then I would hope that she's able to cultivate, especially when it comes to sex and stuff like that. I would hope she's the one that takes that realm, because I'm not prepped for that.
That's not his realm. As a male, that's not his realm.
I don't know necessarily what would work or not work in terms of that aspect. I'm not educated on that.
So you believe that you can educate
like that. So this is one thing I was going to talk about. He was talking about words like hope and beliefs, and I say that that's where the problem is. This is the reason why I was trying to interject respectfully earlier on, because the way you assess and use terms is how it will guide you with how you're moving. So you were going to ask me a question saying, do I believe what? Which I don't believe.
Well,
or
I'm
do I
saying, I'm
believe
like,
what?
do you believe that you should be the one that is giving the teachings to your daughter about like sexual education and how to be a woman and stuff of that nature?
I think that the answer is, as a father, instruction and giving these teachings falls upon a father and also falls upon the mother. But the father is pinnacle here. He's more vital in my view of controlling and influencing the daughter than the mother is.
But is
Because
that by examples or by words? This
What
is
do you
what I'm
mean?
saying. Sometimes examples
Even
do-
both.
So action or
what-
non-action?
I know women who say like it was their father that taught them how to cook. So it's action and advice and teachings and word, because the wife that the man would, because it's not the woman that's the head. This is the problem I'm having with this idea. The woman who would be her mother is not the head of the home. So the standard and the tone should have already been set by the man. And it was because it was set by the man that the man made the proper decision to marry the woman who ended up being his wife. He wouldn't make that decision to marry the woman who ended up being his wife if that woman was a rebellious woman to her father and her mother. So when you're venturing in to find a woman this is why I have strong grievances and discomfort when I hear women saying, I want to find a man. What? You should be found by a man.
Yeah.
Because you're busy being a woman in your family structure. Then a man walks into that situation saying, wow, here's a woman that respects the authority of whom?
A man,
Her father.
a father for that.
You see what I'm saying? So it's in that situation that it's like, upon reviewing this, not believing and hoping, but upon reviewing this, I see that just as she was able to respect the authority and the leadership and the guidance, even because sometimes it's not authority leadership like it's dictatorship. Sometimes
No, but sometimes being a leader and being respected doesn't need to come with words. It's just the actions that you do.
sometimes by example.
That setting,
you're right, but
just setting the example.
Yeah, because
setting the example.
Seeing like
Seeing your
having
father
opinions.
doing certain things allows a woman to be like,
this is the problem.
I
with the
believe
previous
in this
generations.
individual.
The problems of the previous generations is a lot of women that saw what their fathers were doing without explanation. Right? That product,
Isn't that how babies learn?
that product,
Don't they see by example and then they replicate it as they get older? It's always you watch and observe an individual. That's how you learn. So that's why sometimes it doesn't need
that's
to be
one way
through
of
words.
learning.
Yeah, it's one way of
That's
learning. Yes.
So you don't want to handicap that person with just a limited way of learning is what I'm saying. You want to
Okay.
get to a place where, because you guys are correct when it comes to actions. I don't like when people say actions speak louder than words, because it doesn't. Actions are actions, words are words. Actions are speaking when you're speaking about the actions.
But they're saying
Right? So
the strongest learning tool is through visualization. Audio would probably be second, but visually seeing
some things
things.
don't need to be said. You're right. Some things don't need to be said. But we're living in a world, especially when we talk about information, a lot of things need to be said. What we're consuming needs to be said. There's a reason why we're involved in the times that we are, where we find out that people are doing monkey see, monkey do, but words aren't stifling. Okay, so what I mean to say is, like, when you think about commandments and when you think about instructions, just because I'm coming from a lens of, like, you know, as an instructor, as a tutor, or what have you, does not mean that this does not apply. When you think about going to whatever first job or whatever gig you got, you can't just simply see things. You have to also learn what you're seeing is noted as this. The term is this. So the ordo, the ability of being able to listen to words and meshing it with what you are seeing is important as well. I mean, we shouldn't just leave it to, I left it to my eyes, because looks are deceiving.
Mhm.
But words with looks are not deceiving. Not too many times.
So
And that's why words matter even more than looks.
now,
oftentimes.
if you're in a different country, you don't speak the language. How do you get around? Is it not by the body language of an individual?
I'm not saying that there isn't an importance of, I'm not saying that there isn't a use for, obviously, actions. I'm talking about in the home. We're getting too far if we start saying something like like what you just presented.
Well, I'm just trying to say the importance of body language and
Not even body
Having your father,
language or
what we
something like
realize
that.
is having
Having
ask these
the
women,
father,
having your father there was not enough. When you ask a lot of these women,
Yes,
that a
you're
lot
right,
of men are
you're right,
sleeping
yeah.
with, right?
These
These
yeah.
fathers
So
were
it's
there
an
for
emotional
doing all
support.
this
Okay,
stuff.
yeah, you're right.
There has to
But
be.
I think
there
that's
has
a-
to be a deeper teaching. I get
And
what
one
he's
thing
saying.
that I
He's
get
saying there
upset-
has to be a deeper teaching to
There
men
has to be.
because
Yes,
One thing
okay.
I-
because men,
Okay,
we've
yeah.
seen multiple women
You're
that
right.
come from a full
And
household.
then
Okay, yeah.
sometimes women are
And you're
watching
right,
and
yeah.
then judging you based off of their lens. And no
Yeah.
one was correcting their lens.
That's
They were
true.
observing
Yeah.
their father and their mother doing this.
But it wasn't. It
But
wasn't.
they didn't
until-
give you.
'cause
They didn't tell you to do it.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of,
So-
he's right about this.
You're
a
right
lot
about
of people
that,
that
okay.
we
What's
talk
up?
about, a lot of parents, and just because you're in a 2-parent household doesn't mean your parents are having a conversation that are going to make you successful or make you avoid certain
That's true.
bad decision making and stuff like that. Because just like
So we do assume
we
that
can-
because they've
we can-
seen by our actions that
we can
And
speak,
one
we
might
can
say-
speak just personally. Hold on.
My bad.
We can speak just personally. Like our parents were like African parents in general. They're not the type to like explain like sex like that. It's not like how it is in this society here, like in North America, how they try and educate kids on sex, condoms, STIs, STDs, certain things to look out for. More traditional homes that are like more religious based or what have you, those type of families are not so keen or not so, maybe educated, could be, uneducated, I don't know what you want to call it, but they don't feel comfortable having certain conversations with their kids. This is why a lot of women we'll see, even with their father and mother in the picture, and both could be successful.
Nonverbal.
That doesn't work. Even if they both are successful, we start to realize that, there was still a missing ingredient. They avoided certain topics. They avoided certain teachings. They kind of just expected the kid to just follow, monkey see, monkey do. If I do it, you do it. But sometimes there has to be understanding and why it worked
There
out
has to
for
come with
us.
a
And
reason.
there has to be a
okay.
reasoning.
And reasoning requires
beneath it, for sure.
requires your mouth.
Yeah,
so you're
So
gonna have to explain.
nonverbal
I could
communication
agree
is
with that.
important,
That's true.
and it could be effective, but I don't argue that it's more effective than nonverbal communication with communication. So
Okay.
even when I hear arguments of, I didn't have a father, but I was raised well, or some single parent households are better. Well, if they're usually offering that to be the woman that they're coming from, like, my mother was a good mother, and it's if you follow that, you might even want to ask, did your mother communicate? So you would see that verbal communication is paramount. Right, so to make their case, the mother wasn't just doing, because in those moments, if she's just doing and not using words to try to communicate, understand, let's say the child's feelings or thought process on things, that wouldn't be a good outcome likely. So
And women tend to say that communication is key.
So it's so funny because oftentimes, man, I don't want to say it like this, but oftentimes what a lot of women say is not true. In the sense that
but
they
that
say
one,
a lot of things that are true
Yeah,
of their
some things are
feelings in
true,
that
yeah.
moment, but they're not giving you grounded information that can be used to actually judge as a manual day to day. They're often very volatile and fluttery when it comes to their reactions to things. But people, again, we hear it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah.
How you say
Right?
it,
So
the tone.
sometimes because
I don't necessarily believe that because, again,
No,
we
that's the
have
perception of it.
we
That's
have
still the
educators.
perception.
We have educators that have the right tone, but still, like Jordan Peterson,
Again,
have
but
the
that's
right.
going to be up for interpretation, unfortunately.
Again, yeah.
Unfortunately,
So,
but
yeah.
that's the same thing for sexual assault or sexual harassment at the workplace. Up for interpretation. I could do this to you. So we seen the video with
I
LeBron,
don't
for
think it's
example.
up for interpretation. I
It-
think
it
it's being
surely
interpreted
is.
by many people, but it wasn't because it was up
It's
for
not because
interpretation.
it's being interpreted by many people. So
This is the reason why
there's no solid one specific thing this could be. Then
there could be.
there could be, but it's never allowed for that because of the opinions of.
So
many
you're saying
people.
LeBron?
This video,
Yeah, the
with
video of LeBron, Jenny
LeBron
Buss.
was sitting beside the owner of the Lakers, Jeannie Buss,
Jeannie,
and
sorry,
another woman beside him, and he's a married man. And basically, in the conversation, it looks like LeBron's saying something to them, and they're laughing at her, having a fun time. But you see, the one woman has the right hand on his back, the left hand on the biceps of LeBron. And then, which is not Jeannie Buss, not the owner. Then we have the owner eventually leaning her head on the shoulder of LeBron, and LeBron's in the middle of these two women. Now,
Is this a recent situation?
This is recent.
this is a recent situation. So LeBron's a married man now. So the point of the matter is, if
Yeah,
you
they made a meme out
if
of
you
it.
flip that, and you put two guys on the outside of, even like a famous, say, an actress. Let's go to that. Like,
I hate this equality.
say if you flip it, right? It's like, think about the sexual harassment ideology behind the two, where obviously in LeBron's case, no one would say, you got, like, come on, give me a break. Like, you guys were having a joke. But again, if you flipped it, that can easily be interpreted as inappropriate behavior, potentially sexual assault, and, with grabbing the arm. Because the reason I said this is because I seen a video of a Saudi Arabian guy, and they said he inappropriately touched the interviewer. He put his hand kind of like near her waist, and they said that was like very inappropriate for a Muslim guy to. You can't do that in the Muslim culture. Let's just put it that way. So I just look at the different interpretation, and that's why I say it's always up in the air for interpretation. Because in one sense, when you do the same thing, it's fucked. It's like, yeah, that's definitely wrong. And then in another sense, you're like, no, that's not really that wrong. That's just innocent.
I'm the sort of individual that more so goes like, it is what it is, and it's not what it's not. So it don't matter if it's open to a million interpretations. Is it what happened, or is it not what happens? And I think men should be pushing more for that.
But when women come and say that they've been sexually assaulted, what do you think? What do you think the process is behind? Not assaulted, sexually harassed. What do you think the process is behind? I felt that this guy was watching me when inappropriately, looking at me inappropriately.
And usually when they say that,
that's what I said.
And
it's not going to be.
I've seen that. I've seen videos where.
Out if this is true or not.
No, but we've even seen videos where women would say, "Well, the way I consider what's sexual harassment and what's not is based if I like the individual or not. So if the individual is attractive, I wouldn't say it's sexual harassment. But if the individual isn't attractive to me, I'm going to say it's sexual harassment."
But how do we get to the sexual harassment situation?
No, because he was talking about like different elements of,
because it's dilute. To me, it's diluting what we were trying to get to when we were talking about communication. I think that's where we came from. We were talking about
we're talking about.
Then he was talking about the LeBron James,
how things can be communicated. So it's interesting now because
the misinterpretation of the LeBron James and the that's what he was talking
about, like where these things can be
misinterpreted.
So it's interesting because, in a sense, you sort of prove my point when it comes to verbalizing and bringing it back to the family. Whereas you don't just look at your father if you're a woman saying, "Oh, my father did this, so I expect this." Because as your father was doing it, he was probably teaching your daughter, the reason why I do this, one time when it's your time to be with a husband and to, find that unity and to go into holy matrimony, recognize that this should be present here, left and right. Because a lot of the times, bringing it back to what I was saying as a point, is that a lot of these women will have their fathers in the household, but not describing in detail of what to expect and perhaps why he's doing things. You see, parenthood, oftentimes, this is why I actually don't appreciate a lot of parents, not just in the field that I'm in and anything of that nature. You get a chance to just observe people who call themselves parents. And the truth of the matter is, parenthood for a lot of people in the modern sense is breed children and be lazy and say it was because you did what you did and don't question what I'm on to. Because parenthood and parenting is a lifelong process, and it's not easy. So oftentimes we find, especially within the Black community, from my lens and from what I've been able to observe, we find scenarios of women who did have those fathers around but not explaining. So when they don't explain, you can get yourself in compromising positions. And that's what I was describing. That's why I was saying that a father, a man of the household, right? The father, not just the man of the household, your father should be attentive, and his leadership should not just come with actions. That way you don't find yourself in open to interpretation. This is what I'm describing. You will know that your father's had these views on marriage, had these views about a certain kind of man, you know, and you can reference it, and you can even encourage the man that is a prospect that's trying to marry you to even engage with your father. I try to do that. Anytime I'm in you seem like you want to ask.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so, okay, but what about if certain fathers are not in the position to be a teacher, an educator to the children because they're constantly working, they're doing 12-hour shifts, they're outside all day.
Delegation happens now in the nuclear family, man and wife. Delegation is the wife now, what she is instructing her children to be on has already been approved
Oh,
has
this
the
is what I was
stamp,
talking
has
about.
the
This is
vote
what
on
I
here.
was talking about.
That's what we
You
were
chose
talking
a
about. We
wife.
chose the wife to
You chose a
be
proper
a sort
wife
of representative
to be
for
the
yourself.
representation of you when you're
Not
not
as
in
a-
the picture, because
But as to be
you
a
gotta do.
temporal substitute teacher.
Yes,
not
absolutely.
you're
Yes,
still
not
the
not as
teacher.
the
main
not the
teacher is
primary.
you.
You're always going to be
Yeah.
the main teacher, but you
But a
have
lot of males and a lot of men aren't looking at it that way. As,
Yeah, they'll just leave
right
their
there,
wife
Yeah.
to teach
they
the
leave it to
kid.
the wife. So that's what I thought I was hearing. Was
Okay.
like,
Oh, okay.
the
That's
man should
probably
be-
what's happening in most scenarios that you're talking about, where the women you're saying have both the men and women there. Usually, and from what I've heard, even though the man and woman are there, sometimes these women are not really interacting with their dads at a certain point,
So then
especially
this
when
is-
they get to adulthood.
This is what I'm
The
saying.
men, I don't know what happens, but I think there's with the maturity of women, because women get matured quickly, especially with their body, makeup, all the stuff that comes with being a woman, especially in this society. And I think a lot of men, when they have daughters, because they're not transparent, whether that could be due to not wanting to be involved and or
Women
know
do not
about.
mature quickly mentally.
Hmm?
I just felt the urge to debunk that nonsense.
Which
Women-
one?
Yeah, I don't believe they
Women
get
do not mature.
No, not mentally. Not mentally. Not,
yeah,
oh,
but
yeah,
in the
not
sense
mentally.
of their
sorry.
in the sense of their
Their
biology,
body.
Yeah,
sure.
No. That's why I said it's
you know,
physically maturing.
physically,
physically
yeah.
maturing.
Mm.
So
you
I
gotta
think
stop saying that just in general.
Yeah, no.
'cause-
Physically
yeah.
maturing. The reason I say that, because your daughter can be like, really, she can be 13 with a double D chest. Like, at the end of the day, like, you were thinking I was going to have a conversation about sex when she was 17 or 16. Now she's all of a sudden 13 and her body looks like a grown woman. We've seen this in society and stuff like this. Point of what I'm trying to say is you can't just, when you're a parent, you can't just expect people to have the answers. Like, some people have one daughter or one son, or some people have multiple, so they're able to make mistakes. So parents aren't perfect. So we have to understand that, of course, you should be explaining and you should be leading by example, but obviously there's going to be a lot of mistakes parents make in this.
Well, they also have
in
things
this
that they're
cycle.
doing in their own
We
life
can't be
that
doing
they.
that. We can't be doing that.
We have to consider that parents have their own issues and
yes.
stress
And their own issues
that
and
they got to
stress and
deal
life
with.
they deal with.
Yes.
They're living life too.
Yes, that's true. Good point. What I'm saying is this creates a crack and an open for it to widen. And when it widens, it gets to the problem that we're now describing. So for someone like myself, what I'm trying to say, piggybacking in a sense off of what you were saying, Ahmed, is that knowledge and good parenthood is important. I imagine that we agree there, right?
100%.
Okay. To do that, you have to be active in that.
100%. But
So we
again,
shouldn't
you were
always-
talking about, but it even goes back to your point, even when we talked about the government tyranny type of shit. Like, at the end of the day, there's other powers that be that may be suppressing certain people. So how are we going to just put that on an individual when it's not even
So-
you that controls the destiny of like, the world is the world. The powers that be are the powers that be. You don't get to put all your influence in your child as you think, even if
But
you
you
are
see, when
teaching
you're
them and explaining.
When you're saying something like that, that is more problematic than positive, because
Or you're being realistic.
that's not realism. That's,
How is it
that's-
not?
That's the fad and the trend of the time. What
Mm-hmm.
can become realistic more so? What I mean to say is, let me correct myself and say this: that form of realism, based off of the reality that we're in, should not be championed. And when we give leeway, this sort of gross leeway, to say that, you got to be realistic, this happens, the government controls more. We're not in the business of.
I'm not
just-
saying I said that. I'm saying you're on the side of saying those type of things. That's what I'm
sort
trying
of
to
things?
say.
Maybe you have
Like
me
I
mixed
said,
up.
government tyranny and powers that
Yes,
be
just because the
that
power-
have roadblocks for you, or
Evil prevail when good men fail to act.
Mhm.
That's what I'm pushing here. I'm
Mhm.
saying that
Evil can still prevail even when good men act.
exactly.
No.
Yes.
No good deed goes unpunished. You
Of
never heard that
course.
one?
Listen,
No good deed goes
you
unpunished.
see what you
but
see what you
we're
guys are
not-
doing? You guys are giving wiggle room for
We're
darkness.
not giving you.
We're not
wiggle
giving
room.
wiggle room. We're-
Because you're
because
talking
if-
about a
if
system.
I say
'cause
evil
then
preve-
if I'm going
Yeah.
by your logic, bro, I would just have a government system, or I'll just have a system where it's like, fuck, lock everyone down. Just have
Ain't
one person
nobody
control the
saying-
whole
no
thing.
one is
So there's
saying
no
lock
other
everyone-
perspectives.
What I'm saying
'Cause
is that
there's
you're not
other
bringing a historical.
perspectives,
You're
bro.
not bringing a historical lens to this when we
Mhm.
talk about how what are educational institutions? You think schools, to the degree that they are right now, where there's 40 members in a classroom, 30 members in a classroom, one teacher, you think that's the norm since when? When has that been the norm? This kind of John Dewey kind of mentality.
But do you partake? Do you partake in the system that we're currently in? Do you not work for these institutions?
Even if that's the
so therefore, if you're working in the institution, you can't tell me you're against it and still work for the system.
Yes, you can.
But you're supposed to be a good man. But you're a good man working in.
If I want to go into these details, I don't want to make this a little too personal. But what I'm saying is this: I am practicing what I am preaching, right? And that's why I don't want to get into it on air. I can get into it to let you guys know.
All right.
But what I'm saying is, there are a lot of educators and tutors and instructors out there that are creating. It is very difficult to create an alternative, but just because it's difficult, don't mean people aren't doing it.
I'm not saying
myself.
that, but I'm saying the realism. See, this is where I'm talking about the realism of the whole situation.
What I'm saying is, the rhetoric I hear you guys sometimes espouse in this moment, in this conversation, can be defeatist. In the sense of the government controls most areas of viable education or viable teaching and knowledge to your children. So don't put too much pressure on the parents. Give them a little bit of breathing room to realize that
I'm saying adapt to the situation that you're currently in. Know what the situation is and then make the adjustments.
To it.
You make the adjustments, you make wiggle room, and you have to be able to bend.
But the goal is not, so I'm not coming as too rigid. I think that's the misconception here. The goal is not create let me say it like this. Recognize that you may have to bend. Understood.
Yes.
But you're not a slinky. Mm-hmm. So let's not be talking and be advocating us recognizing the bends. Because what happens in those moments now is people keep hearing the bends, and they don't hear how now we should be straight. We should be straight, and we should stick to our guns, metaphorically, of what we know that's right. So people aren't pushing righteousness anymore. Mm-hmm. And when you're not pushing righteousness because we have so many...
But that's what you're pushing. So we're just giving you a pushback on the righteousness. We can't stand on the same side you're standing on because we all have different ideologies. Everybody thinks differently. Yeah, so therefore, we have to give the pushback on what you're saying.
And I'm fine with that. So if you're giving me the alley-oop, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I understand for the sake of discussion that, well, I'm never a fan of devil's advocacy because I always say, while you're busy advocating for the devil, you could have been advocating for good.
Yeah.
So I don't really enjoy the what if. That's why when I hear equality, it's like, how about we just stop the nonsense as opposed to make sure that the other side has the equal amount of symmetry. You know what I'm saying?
100%, I agree with that. Yeah. But again, of course, if we're talking about content conversationally,
yes,
it leaves rooms and gaps that can be mended. Because at the end of the day, if you see a gap in my argument, you're closing gaps, so your argument's stronger.
Of course, and I don't mean to. I'm passionate about
this.
Yeah,
of course.
And that's I have dogs. That's the point of it,
right?
Of course,
that's the point of it.
Oh, so you guys are trying to round me up?
No. But at the end of the day,
it's a debate.
No,
it's
my
a
whole
debate.
thing is because when people are hearing this, they're like, wow. It's just like any interview that you see anywhere, because if there's no pushback on someone saying stuff, people are listening and they're saying to themselves, no, I don't think that's true. I don't believe this. Or I grew up different. Hey, how come I turned out this way? My father never taught me and I still ended up being good. So they try and find the loopholes in the argument.
And that's why.
And that's where you have to mend them.
Exactly.
If you stand on that. Exactly. You have to put the mortar and fix up the patches. You have to patch it up.
And for those that are listening to me, this is the reason why, and this is the problem with our society. We've gotten to such a degree where so many people are so broken. So unfortunately, I'm usually not in the business of trying to fix multiple broken parts and broken individuals at the same time. We have to do it in a sense where those who are able to hear from today and from this episode, it's like, that's the beautiful thing about content like this. Come back to it. Be upset at it today. Come back to it tomorrow, and maybe then you can hear me in a better with better listening tools. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't know how to listen so well anymore, right? Listening is a skill that's long forgotten. And what I'm saying is, I can't really be like with multiple pronged attacks. I could be about these sorts of things. I could banter and I can go into these intellectual bouts, is what I meant to say. But one thing that I want people who are hearing to take away is that the excuse making or let's not give ourselves too many opportunities to give excuses. And my fundamental belief when I talk about some of these things is parents have done that in the past. That's why we're at this problem now. And for the millennials that are listening and the Generation X that are listening to try to be better parents in the future, as a parent, you can't keep tapping yourself on the back, on your shoulder and saying, you know what, I was too busy today. You have to realize as a parent, this is warfare. Like, some people have, this is why I don't like when women want to have discussions with me about, one day when I have children, it's like, shut the fuck up. Don't speak about stuff like that. Because to you, it's just a fad. These are human beings. These are lives that you're going to need to pour into. And I don't want to get to the stage or be around you to get to the stage where I'm hearing you saying, here's why I couldn't pour into my child. And that's what I'm hearing in these moments. So that's why I'm against that sort of rhetoric. Not because you guys aren't giving me good points in terms of challenging.
Exactly.
And I'm only just trying to say that for those that are listening, because I know you guys get
we have to have the final, we do have to have the final conclusion of you talking about that, because again, like what you said, now when we wrap things up and we see the perspective, now we can really piece it all together and why you're so vehement on saying, no, we can't go that way, or we can't give that excuse, because too many times we've given this excuse and we've seen what the results are. And obviously this is like casualties of war, right?
This is what I'm saying. There's too many collateral.
And it affects, of course, the Black community severely, because we give a lot of leniency, especially, playing the victim. I'm not an advocate of playing the victim and always, crying, woe is me.
Or even being the victim, because
that's what I'm saying.
Righteous, or understandably so, some of them are the victims. So I'm not trying to sound like dismiss these individuals. My heart actually goes out to them, right? And so I'm looking for ways where I'm equipping these individuals. I'm basically weaponizing them, so to speak, where it's like, look, it's unfortunate that you're a child soldier in this type of situation, but you being a child soldier or you not choosing to pick up the arms is not going to stop this warfare. Now that you've recognized through trial and error, and maybe in some cases where people have done you wrong, and yeah, people have done you wrong. Maybe in those situations, I can sympathize and in some cases empathize, but the war has not concluded. We haven't ended this war yet. So stop sitting down and the woe is me, as you were saying, that kind of victim mentality, and just say, listen, I can't go on anymore because I didn't have a mother. I didn't have a father. It's like, I understand that. But do you want to be the change you want to see? Or do you just want to say, because some people are like this. The truth of the matter is sometimes people are like, I don't want others to have this since I didn't have it. So we have to understand motivation sometimes. And so for me, I'm encouraging people to recognize what our parents, our forefathers, our direct grandparents didn't give us. And one of the things I was upset about was just how, children should be seen and not heard. Okay, granted, if children should be seen and not heard, I would also think that these parents should be seen and be speaking life into their children and teaching their children. And don't say that you couldn't because you're a 9 to 5, even though that's a legitimate reason. I wouldn't even call that an excuse. Because if you're talking to me with that energy as an excuse, then that's how you know you don't care about yours. But if you're talking about it as a, just be aware, I need that leeway because life isn't going according to what I had planned, you might actually be able to broker situations where people have the same view. And if from there, you can even maybe change one school in the institution. The goal is not to win the war tomorrow. The goal is to at least equip yourself for the battle that's at hand. That's all I'm really saying. Right? So.
Okay.
I mean, he's got a point there. You're right. You're right in that sense. I mean, like you said, it's one battle at a time. The war is not to be won in one day. It takes time. It's progression, and of course, through the cultivation of people, communication. The biggest thing about this conversation was the communicational aspect, especially when it comes to parents. And this is going to apply to relationships. It's going to apply to most things you do in your life. Communication is key, and it's going to have to be through actions and through words, explanation, understanding. Sometimes you can even say stuff to people and think you've explained it to them, but you haven't really explained it to them where they understand what it is or the importance of what you're saying. Because a lot of the time we hear people talk to us, give advice. We all get good advice and we get bad advice too. But it's how we choose to listen to that advice? What are we really taking away from the advice? Why are they telling us this? And why do we have to be careful for what it is they told us? Why do we have to watch out for this cautious situation, this dangerous situation? What's the point to it all? So if that's not explained, then I understand with what Jariah is saying. It's like you're failed to be doomed, and then the parent can't make an excuse by saying, life had got to them and this and that, because at the end of the day, if you decide to have a child, the responsibility is going to fall directly on the teachings of the parent. And like I said, it's a lifelong, like he said, it's a lifelong thing where there's no excuse to just walk away or say, I was busy. Because again, when your child becomes something you didn't want them to be, it falls directly on your head.
100%. Now, also, another thing that I took away from this is that even when you are teaching your child, you also have to make sure when the information is given to them, you got to make sure that they understood what was given to them. So you got to ask them, do you understand what's the reasoning behind what I'm saying, right? So you got to kind of pick their brain and see if they could verbalize what you were saying to them, the teaching that you're imparting to them. So just making sure that you have that communication and that understanding of both parties understanding one another. And that's the only way you'll know if the information that you're imparting to your kids is actually being, is actually entering their mind, and, something that can be cultivated. And when they do get to a certain age, they can use that information to cultivate the offsprings that come after them. So I think this was a great conversation today.
Yeah,
I think we had a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
It was great. We got to see two different angles, and that's all we got for today.
Bottom line, take care of your kids.
Exactly. That's
Alternatively, we could just have them wear those red stilettos we saw these men grow up and wear.
That too, right?
Who knows? We might get promoted on YouTube. Maybe. We'll see.
And that's all we
Until
got
next
for
time.
that's all we got for today. And we are out. Deuces.
Be